Hi, this is my review of Mythic Adventures for the Pathfinder role-playing game. This book is perfect if you want to turn your character into one of those icons of myth and legend, such as Hercules or Gilgamesh. This provides an entire new dimension of power. Characters in the Pathfinder role-playing game are already pretty strong, very powerful. But with this book, you're definitely going to explore a new way of playing the Pathfinder RPG, where you can annihilate dozens and dozens of enemies with attacks that would normally be considered standard, and you will have spells that will destroy entire cities, or you will even be able to shape the terrain around you. Now, let's talk about the quality of the physical book. Remember that this can also be purchased as a PDF, and I'm going to put the links in the description below so you can check that out, so you can visit Paizo. When it comes to the physical book, the quality is quite similar to other Pathfinder books. That is, it's good quality, but I wouldn't be too rough on it. And you have these awesome looking Pathfinder illustrations that you will expect from their books. Very nice art expressing the epicness of this book. The organization and writing is great as well. Although I did find a few typos here and there, but they didn't present a major obstacle to understand the content of this book. You also have a perfectly organized table of contents and an index, and at the end you also have a mythic sheet, so you can organize all of your new powers and abilities and mythic feats and such. Now let's talk about the content of this book. At the very beginning, you get a really nice introduction to what this book is. Mythic Adventures are drastically different in terms of power and drama. Your characters are no longer just adventuring for the sake of it or to gain some riches and fame. Sometimes the fate of the entire world rests upon your shoulders, or perhaps on the palm of your hand if you are some sort of like a mythic villain. So you have to adjust yourself to a new way of playing Pathfinder. Although by the end of this review, I expect to communicate why I think this book is quite useful even in those campaigns that are not fully mythic. Then you have a nice guide, like in many other Pathfinder books, that tells you how to navigate the entire book, detailing chapter by chapter. You immediately get introduced into the ways that you can create or develop a mythic character, because some gamers, perhaps those that have used the Epic Level Handbook for Dungeons and Dragons, some of those gamers could expect this to be a similar book, a new level of power that can only be attained after reaching a certain high tier level of experience, or perhaps beyond level 20, but this is not the case. With mythic characters in Mythic Adventures, you basically have this way of developing your character along with your standard level advancement based on experience points. This means that you can turn mythic from the very beginning, from just a couple of levels into your career as an adventurer, or perhaps a bit before that. You will become mythic through Ascension. Ascension is a sort of like a moment of awakening, where your character realizes that he has a talent for mythic prowess, or that she is the repository of some greater eldritch source of power. It could be handled in many ways. Maybe your character came into contact with some sort of strange artifact, or maybe you realize that you're actually the daughter or the son of a god. Or maybe this power was produced when you entered a forbidden place, and the energies of such an area became one with your body. So there are many stories that explain how your character became a mythic character, and in a sense they work a lot like superhero origin stories. With this book, your character is going to feel like a superhero or perhaps a supervillain amongst many other heroes and villains. Once your character starts to progress as a mythic character, you will have to choose a mythic path. Each of these mythic paths serve as categories that will greatly benefit specific character builds. So for example, if you have a fighter, maybe you want to choose the path of the champion or the guardian. Or maybe if you are perhaps a wizard or a sorcerer, you could choose Archmage. And we'll talk about more when it comes to how these paths develop later on in this review. Something that all mythic characters share is a table of base mythic abilities. Each level you will gain something from your mythic condition. Now let's talk a bit about some of the things that you will get as you progress, as you level up as a mythic character. Your ability scores will go up significantly so by 2 at different levels. You will also be able to choose Mythic Feats, which are basically enhanced or empowered versions of normal feats, although there are other more specific Mythic Feats that do not rely on normal feats. You also become quite hard to kill, to the point that you could be reduced below 0 hit points and you will automatically stabilize and will take a significant amount of damage to kill you. In fact, at the highest tiers, you will become immortal. And this is really cool. That is, you will only be able to be killed or completely annihilated when a coup de grace or a critical hit is performed by a mythic creature or a non-mythic creature wielding a weapon capable of bypassing epic damage reduction. This becomes even more dramatic when you reach the highest tier, that is 10th tier, where you can only be killed by a coup de grace or a critical hit made with an artifact. So your character is basically turning into Sauron. But the difference is that, well, to destroy Sauron you need to destroy the One Ring. Here they need to use an artifact similar to the One Ring to destroy you. Otherwise, when you are killed, you immediately return back to life 24 hours later. So you effectively become a supernatural creature. Something more akin to a legend rather than a normal adventurer. You could even rival some demigods or minor deities, or perhaps, who knows, if you play your cards right, maybe you will become some sort of god. You also have some other things. For example, you have Mythic Power. This is basically a pool of points that you can spend to carry out different extraordinary powers, abilities, ways to modify your reality. Because, for example, you have the Search. And with Mythic Search, when you spend use of your Mythic Power, you may add another die roll to a d20 roll that you have just made. And this goes up as you level up. So first, let's say you make your roll and you're not satisfied with your d20 roll. You add 1d6 to your roll. And later on you will add 1d8, 1d10 and so on. You also have Amazing Initiative that will give you a bonus to your initiative. You also have Recuperation. That is, you could decide to rest for 1 hour and spend some Mythic Power to recover a number of hit points equal to half your full hit points. And this is going to be quite useful if you are, for example, chasing down some enemy. That way you don't have to rest the full 8 hours to replenish yourself. You also have a bonus to your saving throws, that is the Mythic Saving Throw. This specifically works as in, for example, when you make your saving throw, normally there are some spells and effects that still deal half damage, even if you are successful with your saving throw, but with this you can avoid all of that damage entirely. You also have Force of Will that will allow you to make re-rolls. That's why I said that you feel like you're modifying reality through your mythic powers. And you will also eventually become a legendary hero, where your mythic power recharges significantly fast when compared when you were just starting on your mythic path. And then, when it comes to gaining tiers, these are not gained like levels after gaining a significant amount of experience points. You obtain your mythic tiers by completing mythic trials. Every time you succeed at some extraordinary task, you will have a chance to go up in different tiers obtained by trials. But as you go up in tiers, you will need to accomplish more and more trials. At the highest tiers, you will need to tackle up to 5 trials to go up in tiers. So this reflects quite well how a hero has to do more and more epic and legendary things to obtain greater power. Now let's talk about the different mythic paths that you can take. First, we have the Archmage, and this is all about bending reality to your will. There are many ways in which you can specialize. Maybe you want to become a defensive caster or a knowledge master, or perhaps a spontaneous Archmage. There are different ways in which you can build your Archmage, and you have, with each of these tier paths, you have a small text box that will tell you how to build the right character for you. With each of these paths, you gain hit points. So this will also alter the challenge rating of any character that takes these mythic tiers. Because, for example, maybe you are a level 6 fighter with 2 or 3 mythic tiers, those will count as half. So in that case, being a level 6 fighter with 3 tiers, you will actually count as a character of challenge rating 7. Your 6 levels of fighter plus half the mythic tiers rounded down and to a minimum of 1. So one character that has managed to go all the way up to level 20 with 10 mythic tiers, he's going to be the equivalent of a 25 challenge rating creature or entity. The Archmage has 3 abilities. He has to choose once, and once that is taken, it cannot be changed. There are some abilities that are shared between the different legendary paths or of the tiers, but each of these paths of the Archmage, Champion, etc., they all feel their own thing because of the general structure. So the Archmage has the Arcane Search. As a swift action, you can expend one use of Mythic Power to cast any one arcane spell without expending a prepared spell or spell slot. If you prepare spells, this spell must be one you prepared today. If you're a spontaneous caster, this spell must be one of your spells known. And you get other things, and there's more to that. It's somewhat deep. You have Mage Strike, that is also going to be quite useful if you like carrying out melee attacks while casting a spell at the same time. And you also have Wild Arcana. Many of these ways of specialization within tiers could enhance existing capabilities of the core classes, or you could add some things that are not normally in that core class, because if you want to have like a barbarian that could heal himself, you can actually do that when choosing some specific paths like the Path of the Guardian. If I'm not mistaken, yes, the Path of... oh, sorry, the Path of the... yes, the Guardian. When it comes to the Archmage, you have many other things that you can choose as path abilities. You have things such as Arcane Endurance. Treat your caster level as 4 higher when determining the duration of spells you cast. You have Competent Caster. You automatically succeed at concentration checks to cast arcane spells. Then you have Eldritch Breach. You are adept at breaching magical defenses and overcoming resistance to your magic. You have Enduring Armor. You are protected by armor made of force. And those are just some of the first tier Archmage path abilities. As you go up in tiers, you will get stronger ones, such as Channel Power. You gain the ability to channel raw arcane power into a spell. You have Eldritch Reciprocation. You can choose to take extra damage from an arcane spell to replenish Mythic Power. Very useful in a desperate situation. And then we have the Path of the Champion. This is the path that is most suited for melee-oriented characters, even those that specialize in ranged attacks. So if you have a fighter or perhaps a barbarian, you should definitely consider getting Champion. Because, as you may have guessed already, Archmage is more specific for sorcerers, wizards, bards. And Champion is mostly focused on dealing a lot of physical weapon damage. So you have different ways of specializing your Champion, with abilities such as Distant Barrage, Fleet Charge, Sudden Attack. You have many ways to carry out range and melee attacks, surprising your opponents, and dealing considerable damage from the very first turn. You'll see that it's quite possible with these mythic tiers to annihilate the strongest opponents from the very first round. When it comes to tier champion path abilities, you have things such as Aerial Assault. You can charge at creatures in the air or leap across obstacles as part of a charge. Or you have Blowback. As a standard action, you can expend one use of Mythic Power to make one melee or ranged attack at your full base attack bonus. And I like this one quite a bit. This is called Clean Blade. Whenever you score a critical hit, as a free action you can make a ranged touch attack to fling the blood and gore at another opponent within 30 feet. And there is a chance of getting that foe sickened or even blinded. But that's really over the top and dramatic in my opinion. You have also some higher tier abilities, like for example Critical Master. Whenever you roll a critical threat against a non-mythic creature, you automatically confirm the critical hit and deal the maximum amount of damage to that creature. And this ability can be selected twice. And the second time, it also applies to mythic creatures. Or you have Fistful of Daggers. When you can make a full attack with thrown weapons, you can instead make a single attack roll at your highest attack bonus and apply the result to any number of creatures in a 30-foot cone. And you could customize your champion to be an armored warrior, a death dealer, a maneuver champion, etc. Then we have the Guardian. This is all about taking extraordinary amount of punishment and still not breaking a sweat, and counterattacking devastatingly so. So this is a path very well suited for paladins, inquisitors, cavaliers. They can make great use of that, or even monks. You can specialize your Guardian's Call by taking Absorb Blow, Beast's Fury, or Sudden Block. And you have many abilities such as the Adamantine Mind. Your mind is as hard as any armor and is dangerous to engage. So every time they're trying to affect you with some mind control effect, you can resist it and you can actually counterattack with a will save and stunning the creature because of your powerful mind. And you also have things such as Avenging Maneuver. Taking grievous wounds only empowers you. You have other things such as Pack Wild Shape. And this is if you want to take, for example, this tier path with a druid, you could basically transform allies when you change shape with you. And you have some more powerful things such as, for example, Companion Power. You can imbue your bonded creature with your own mythic nature. So this is great for example, a ranger. Or you have other things such as Invincible Stand. You can expend one use of Mythic Power as a swift action to make yourself nearly invincible for a short period of time. And then we have the Path of the Hierophant. This is perfect for clerics, druids, and oracles. Here you become the embodiment of your deity or any domains that you represent. You have ways of specialization such as Beast's Fury, Inspired Spell, and Recalled Blessing, with abilities such as Bleed Holy Power. If you channel positive energy, when an undead creature damages you with a melee attack, you can expend one use of channeled energy as an immediate action to channel energy to deal damage to the undead creatures around you. You have other things such as Divine Guardian. As a full round action, You can expend one use of your Mythic Power to summon one extraplanar creature as if using a summon monster or summon nature's ally spell, with the level of the summoning spell equal to half your tier. You have some other more powerful things such as Abundant Healing. When you use a spell or class ability to heal a creature's hit point damage, you can apply excess healing to one ally adjacent to you. And you have other things such as Conduit of Divine Will. Your mythic nature is directly connected to the divine. As a standard action, you can expend one use of Mythic Power to use Channel Energy, use Lay on Hands, or cast any one spell from your domain spell lists. Then we have the Path of the Marshal. This is a leader/support type of path, perfect for bards and cavaliers, perhaps paladins and inquisitors as well. You can specialize yourself with things such as Advance, Decisive Strike, Rally. This is basically empowering your entire party of adventurers and carrying out simultaneous actions. And you have abilities such as Assured Skill. In times of need, you're virtually assured success when using skills. You also have Focus. Your mighty and inspiring presence enhances the power of your companion's heroic surges. You have some other more powerful things, such as Caster's Friend. You bolster the concentration of spellcasting allies standing next to you. You also have things such as Beacon of Hope. You radiate a supernatural aura that fills your allies with hope and resolve. And you give them different bonuses, morale bonuses, and things that will be good for them if they are, for example, have been knocked down. They have a bonus to stabilization checks. So this is a path to be taken by those who wish to become like generals or leaders, or perhaps even just as supporters. Then you have the Trickster path. This is great for rogues, perhaps some monks, assassins, etc. This is all about carrying out lethal and precise, sneaky and ranged attacks, with different features such as Deadly Throw, Fleet Charge, Surprise Strike, and with pass abilities such as Astounding Disable. Whenever you use Disable Device to disarm a trap or open a lock, doing so is only a move action and doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. And you have Ghostly Performance. Whenever you use Bardic Performance, you don't need to spend an action to maintain the effect. You have some other things such as This Might Just Work. You're adept at combining optimistic resourcefulness with natural skill. And you have some pretty powerful things such as Enduring Elixir. Whenever you drink an elixir, extract, or potion with a duration of 10 minutes per level or longer, you can change its duration to 1 day. And I don't remember the exact name of one of these Trickster Path abilities, but there was one that allows you to drink potions without provoking attacks of opportunity. So in an emergency, when your frontliner is down, you could start holding the line for a bit, as long as you have enough potions. Then you have Universal Path abilities. This applies to all of the different Mythic Paths. So you have things such as Commune with Power, Display of Charisma, Mythic Spellcasting, and Legendary Item. There are many things, but let me talk a bit about Mythic Spellcasting. This allows you to use Mythic spells, and we will talk about those in detail in a bit, but this will allow you to carry out supernatural, extraordinary, wondrous things that will shape the very land you stand upon and decimate the foes around you. And when it comes to Legendary Item, you become bound or tied to this weapon of power, or it could be armor, it could be a necklace, and this eventually becomes a powerful artifact of legend. And you have other Universal Path abilities such as Enhanced Ability. You gain a permanent +2 bonus to one ability score of your choice. Or maybe you are a Far Walker. The boundaries of the material plane mean little to you. You can plane shift once per day using double your tier as your caster level. When it comes to Mythic Feats, many of them are, as I was telling you, more potent versions of normal feats. But some others are specific Mythic Feats. So you have things such as Marked for Glory, you gain extra search use of your Mythic Search. And then you have things such as Ascendant Spell, imitate mythic versions of a spell. You have a Drink is Life, you gain benefits from alcohol consumption. You have Maximize Search, expend use of Mythic Power to maximize that search. You have Titan Strike, your unarmed strikes deal damage as if you were one size category larger. With these ways that you build your character, it will be possible for you to duke it out or brawl with the ogres and giants. You can even toss them around as if you were some sort of wrestler. So that's really awesome. Now let's talk about some of the mythic enhancement feats. That is those feats that you are probably familiar with, but here you have the mythic versions of those. You have acrobatic, but here you gain an additional +2 bonus on acrobatic and fly. And you can expand Mythic Power to treat one of these checks as if you rolled a 20. One of my favorite ones is the Cleave. Basically, you can make additional Cleave attacks to any foes within your reach, regardless of position. And if you're only surrounded by, for example, 8 foes, they are probably all going to die if you get lucky in your rolls. You can eliminate dozens and dozens of enemies per encounter with this enhanced feat. You have other things such as Deflect Arrows. You can deflect additional attacks and you can expend Mythic Power to deflect rays. And then you have Elemental Focus. Increase the difficulty classes and expend Mythic Power to force opponents to roll twice and take the lowest result when saving against focus spells. So this is basically to make your elemental attacks more powerful and more lethal. And then you have Gorgon's Fist. You daze a target with your Gorgon's Fist attack. And then you have Stealthy. You gain an additional +2 bonus on Escape Artist and Stealth, and like the other acrobatic type of feat, you can actually expend Mythic Power to treat a roll as if you rolled a 20. So many feats that will enhance and empower anything that you do per round, and you start to feel like this invincible hero at times, although you must not get cocky because there will be mythic foes. Or there could be some artifacts that will counter many of your powers and spells. Let's talk about mythic spells. You have some pretty amazing things. You will be able to toss meteors at structures. You will be able to decimate entire cities with earthquakes. And through the Terraform spell, you could even change the entire land around you. All of these spells are world shapers. That is geographically, politically, reality bending. You can even, for example, erase the memories about a specific thing, an object, or a character. You can just erase that entity or object from existence. So anything related to lightning attacks, air-based attacks, ice, fire, here is everything feels so exaggerated, so over the top, and that's really awesome. And you even have some old favorites like, for example, Web. And normally Web would only help to entangle and slow down your opponent, but here you create a web filled with spiders. So now you're not only cutting the web, now you're also getting attacked by those spiders. Chapter 4 is probably one of my favorite chapters because it feels a lot like a system universal type of chapter. That is, even if you do not play Pathfinder, you will find many useful things in chapter 4 running a mythic game, because they tell you about how to create a mythic atmosphere, how a hero or a villain discovers his mythic condition and starts to face different challenges, makes his way through a particular path of legend and glory, and deals with the aftermath of any world or perhaps even cosmos shattering challenge. So they tell you all about the elements of a mythic adventure, how you will face cunning foes, hard consequences, powerful enemies, and this is also quite useful. All of this is very useful to create mythic adventures and campaigns, because some could be thinking you're just too powerful, there will be very little to challenge you. Maybe all of the campaigns are just a succession of combat encounters facing more and more powerful foes. But here they tell you how to create some other stories that are not necessarily completely tied to your mythic prowess or power, because maybe you need to protect someone. Maybe there is a treasure that will turn others that obtain it into greater and more powerful mythic creatures. Maybe there are puzzles that cannot be solved by just visiting a few adventure sites. It could be global spanning, or maybe you will need to travel across the entire universe. So there are many ways in which a mythic hero is still challenged by things that he cannot comprehend or solve unless he obtains a particular knowledge or lore, and many enemies that will be a perfect match in terms of combat for your character, many ungodly dungeons and adventure sites that will have places so dangerous and so mind-bending to navigate through that even the most powerful mythic character could find his demise there. So all of that you will find here. You will find different themes such as eldritch magic, legendary encounters, lost inheritance, as to how your character obtained his mythic condition, the scope of the entire campaign, how your character will face different story challenges, and of course you will have information on how to present mythic trials for your characters, how to control the pacing of how they go up in mythic tiers. And this is perfect. You can control the pace of the character's powers by presenting different trials that they may decide to overcome early in the campaign or perhaps later on. It's up to them, to their resources, and to the way they play the story or the adventure. You also have Mythic Boons, and these are great ways to reward your player characters. That is, as a game master, you want to give this to them to keep the adventure flowing. It's basically a way to replenish their mythic power by rewarding actions in different encounters. Maybe a particular character dealt a lot of critical hits, you should reward that. Or maybe that character actually survived many critical hits against him or her, you can also reward that. Or maybe your character took on a very powerful foe on his own, you can also reward that. Or maybe these are just guidelines and examples. Maybe some very skilled character opened the way through a certain bolt or disarmed many traps during a particular adventure. You can also reward that during the adventure to replenish mythic power and keep the adventure going. They also tell you how to handle recurring mythic villains. You also have Mythic Flaws, and these are basically a way to weaken the player characters so that they do not feel too powerful. Just like, for example, Superman has the weakness of kryptonite. Here you have different things. Maybe your character is prone to furious rages, or you have some sort of material weakness, some sort of vice or dependency, or a weapon weakness. Maybe you are particularly vulnerable to a certain energy, etc. You also have ideas for Mythic Adventures, things called, for example, you have Eternal Gaze. Not too far from the city is a famous holy site dedicated to a powerful deity. Pilgrims constantly trek to the site to receive the god's blessing, but recently those pilgrims have been found turned to stone along the side of the road. So you have many adventure and campaign seeds with their information on their challenges, the adversaries that you will face, further adventures with titles such as Legacy of Earth, For Love of Sport. They also tell you how to handle moments of powerlessness, as perhaps maybe at some point in the campaign your mythic characters lose their mythic status and they have to recover it somehow, and this would be quite dramatic, and it's a bit like a trope of certain superhero stories. And so this book is also great in that it contains many adventure and campaign seeds. You also have a good list of mythic magic items. You have some more normal items, that is, they can still be handled by non-mythic characters, but they have some effects that you can trigger by spending your mythic power. I'm going to read a few of them just a bit to avoid spoilers, because some of them could be the center of adventures perhaps. You have Spirit Walk Armor. This +2 improved Shadow Leather armor is attractive yet eerie. It grants its wearer the ability to use Banish as a quickened spell-like ability 5 times per day. And if you spend your Mythic Power, you can even become incorporeal. You have different abilities that you can apply to generically to different weapons, such as Potent, Mythic Bane, Sacrosanct. You have some specific weapons, such as the Chaos Hammer. This oversized hammer crackles with chaotic energy. Once per day, as a standard action, the wielder of this +1 anarchic warhammer can strike the ground to create the effects of the Chaos Hammer spell. A mythic creature wielding this weapon can expend 1 use of Mythic Power to activate this ability without using up its daily use, because it's limited to daily uses. One of my favorites is probably the Gun with No Name. This fits the mysterious stranger archetype of the gunslinger quite well. This is a +2 Mythic Vein Greater Lucky Pepper Box. It appears beat up and nearly useless. However, when you spend either Mythic Power or a Grit Point as a swift action, each of the firearm's empty barrels magically reloads with either black powder and a bullet or with a flare alchemical cartridge. And you are also immune to effects of scrying and divination. It's also impossible to locate this firearm with a locate object effect. So again, because you are a mysterious stranger, it's possible to locate you. Although I imagine it's somewhat risky to lose this weapon because you won't be able to locate it through locate objects. So that's something to consider. You have so many other things. You even have like the Sword of Inner Fire that basically allows you to absorb into yourself the blade of the sword. So you can get a bonus to deflection and in armor class, and luck bonus on all saving throws. You have many other things such as Book of Banishing, Boots of Earth and Wind, Censer of Sanctuary, Canopic Jar, Eye Orb, the Gallows Rope that can actually help you pretend that you are dead, the Immolation Cloak, the Lair of Storms. You also have some very powerful artifacts. We start with the minor artifacts like the Aegis. Just look at it, it's like a Medusa shield. It gives you many different types of bonuses, and I guess you can imagine what it does with the Medusa's Gaze. You have some other things like Elemental Chain, Fortune's Arrow, the Glabresu Claw, that you can actually use it as a sort of graft to replace your hand to gain many different things, such as, for example, the wearer can expend 1 use of Mythic Power to gain telepathy with a range of 100 feet for 2 hours, or cast any of the following spells: Chaos Hammer, Confusion, Dispel Magic, Mirror Image, etc. So it's actually quite worth it to replace your hand with that. All of these items, well, a lot of them can be used by non-mythic characters, but their full potential can only be seen when wielded by a mythic character. You also have information how to create legendary items, of turning your favorite weapon or armor or ring or necklace or whatever into a powerful artifact of legend, specifically bound to you, and maybe you are the only one able to use all of its mythic potential, because someone that is not has not performed like a bonding effect with the artifact can only use it in the most basic ways. You also have many legendary item abilities to customize your legendary item. Maybe it's eternally bound to you, or maybe that item is everlasting or intelligent, or maybe it will enhance your Mythic Search capabilities. Or you also have some metamagic effects related to that item, some rejuvenating effects that will actually make you feel like immortal. You won't need to sleep or drink and eat as long as you have this item. And then we have a small mythic bestiary. Although if you want more mythic monsters, I recommend that you purchase the Pathfinder Bestiary 4. It contains a lot of worthy foes to challenge your heroes. If I'm not mistaken, you will find many mythically empowered enemies there. But the mythic enemies presented here are still quite significant. They basically take monsters from the Pathfinder bestiary and they add some mythic ranks, and this is great as examples on how you can customize or create your own mythic monsters. So all the information concerning challenge rating, feats, special attacks, special abilities, etc. is contained here. So you have things such as the Mythic Aboleth, the Greater Varghest, a Great Cyclops, with abilities such as the capability of causing earthquakes, tossing you around contemptuously. You also have Flash of Brutality. Once per day as a swift action, a Great Cyclops can gain a burst of savage inspiration. When it does, it doubles the threat range of all weapons, natural attacks, and rocks it attacks with until the start of its next turn. It's quite deadly. You also have many demons, the Marlith and the Nalfeshni. You also have the Bone Devil, many different types of dragons. Some of them will surprise you in the sense that you face, for example, a red dragon and you will see, oh, I already know everything that red dragon can do. But this mythic version of the red dragon actually has this fire aura, surrounded by an aura of intense heat. So all creatures within 10 feet take 2d6 points of fire damage at the beginning of the dragon's turn. And that dragon will also be able to manipulate flames and even melt stone. Truly a dragon of legend. You have different types of elementals, air elementals, fire, earth, water, and all of them, they feel like they were there, they were present at the moment of the creation of perhaps an entire plane. So they feel like very ancient, very eldritch forces. You also have the Ettin with different variations such as the Hill Blood Ettin, Orc Blood Ettin, and the Stone Blood Ettin. You have different giants and golems. My favorite one is of the monsters here is probably the Minotaur. The Mythic Minotaur, if he attacks you with its horns, it will send you into an extra dimensional prison, a maze. So that's pretty amazing, and it looks really cool how his horns are covered with these runes of power. Truly awesome. And there are some enemies that are truly quite challenging to serve as entire villains and threats for the duration of the campaign, for the entire duration, such as, for example, the Vampire. He feels like a walking army of darkness. At the highest tiers ranks of his mythic condition, he can actually obscure the sun, the power of the sun around him. And he also creates or summons swarms and swarms of enemies. Many creatures of the night and darkness are ready to respond to his call. So he, as I was telling you, he feels like a walking army of darkness and undeath. You have all the rules of Mythic Monster Advancement, so you can tweak and adjust them to the party that you are challenging. And they basically, when it comes to challenge rating, they basically work quite similarly. That, so for example, a monster that usually is a challenge rating 7, with 4 tiers, it's going to be a challenge rating of 9 because we have 4, 2, 2, so 7 plus 2, it's 9. You have many different monster rules, universal monster rules, and mythic subtypes that you can use with your monsters, and you also have a table detailing monster statistics by challenge rating. At the end of the book, you have an entire mythic adventure with maps, very well structured, quite easy to run. It's the Fire over Black Crag. I'm not going to tell you much about it to avoid spoilers, but this is a great way of introducing an existing party of adventurers to the mythic side of things. From the very beginning, they will get a chance to explore not 1 but 3 mythic tiers, so that they start to feel the difference, to experience how vulnerable they were before becoming mythic and facing challenges that can devastate an entire region. They will travel around different areas as they try to solve a mystery and obtain things that are crucial. They will face foes that normally they expected them to be pretty standard, but here, because they have that mythic rank, each battle will feel like the stuff of legends. So this is a great adventure to give you a taste of the mythic things to come, and it's pretty open-ended to further develop. And even if you want, for example, you want just to give your players a taste of mythic power, you could strip it away from them, or you could handle it as a limited power that they can go every now and then, such as like by the power of Grayskull sort of way. Or you could play the entire rest of the campaign as a mythic campaign. So overall, let me tell you what I think of Mythic Adventures. I think that for some this is going to be a must-have, because I can see so many different advantages at using Mythic Adventures in your Pathfinder RPG. Well, first, it dispels a confusion that some people could have. They could say, how does this measure against the Epic Level Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons 3.0? They are different categories in my opinion. They both feel like they add that quality of godliness to your characters, but Mythic Adventures, the way the tiers are obtained is something that you level up along with your standard character class levels. So if you're actually really ambitious, you could even combine Mythic Adventures with the Epic Level Handbook. That is, you could level up your character to level 20 something, 24, 25, and you could still obtain Mythic tiers as you level up. You will become insanely powerful, probably, for some high-powered campaigns. And that's the other thing, if you are planning to run a short campaign, you don't need to level up your character up to level 20 so that you enjoy the powers of Mythic Adventures. You can start right away, as long as the Game Master approves it, depending on the campaign. One important consideration is that if you plan to run some modules or adventures that were released before Mythic Adventures, you will have to tweak them to present adequate challenges for your player characters, because many traps and enemies and situations will simply not be able to put a scratch on the party, because they already have so many feats and spells and capabilities that will make short work of those adventures and campaigns. I also think that Mythic Adventures is great when you have a very short party of adventurers. Maybe you have only one or three adventurers and you wanted to run this campaign that was quite challenging to the point that you needed 6 adventurers, a party of 6. Just turn those characters into mythic characters and they will be able to make up for the lack of party members. As I was saying, a mythic character feels a bit like a one-man army, able to defeat dozens and dozens of enemies, solve things, and reach places that were impossible to reach, unimaginable to even attain things related to them when you do not have mythic tiers. But when you become a mythic adventurer, everything changes. You feel like you're more like a player rather than a pawn of the gods. You could even fight some of the deities in any campaign setting that you can think of. So with all of that into consideration, oh, and one other thing, I don't think that the bookkeeping was too cumbersome. You do have a new character sheet to keep track of your different tiers and advancement and abilities, but it kind of feels like you are handling half of an animal companion sheet. So I don't think you should be too worried about feeling overwhelmed by leveling up your character in standard class levels and the mythic tiers. So I highly recommend Mythic Adventures. It surprised me quite a bit. I thought it was going to perhaps clash with what was once presented in the Epic Level Handbook, but it could actually even enhance the content of that book, and even as a standalone book, it can very much replace it. So consider it as a great way to add an entirely new dimension of power to your Pathfinder RPG. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.